What if everything you actually needed to fill your garden with charming, one-of-a-kind decor was already sitting in your garage, your junk drawer, or at the curb on someone else's trash day? For free? Now, maybe you're thinking three things. Junk looks like junk. No matter how you arrange it, you'd need real artistic skill to turn old odds and ends into something pretty. And anything worth having, you just have to buy. None of that is true, not one bit. These are 12 creative ways to turn everyday junk into genuinely beautiful garden decor. Old kitchenware, broken furniture, forgotten odds and ends, all given a second life outdoors. We're counting all 12 down, from charming to the piece that made a visiting friend ask where on earth I'd found such a unique designer item. And wait until number 4. The project built entirely from a kitchen drawer of mismatched broken utensils that nobody else wanted. Stay to the end, too. There's one free trick that makes any piece of junk look like it was meant for the garden all along. Let's go treasure hunting. In your own garage. Welcome to Nature's Nest TV. So glad you're here. This channel runs on one simple idea. A beautiful outdoor space doesn't have to come from a shopping trip at all. Sometimes the best garden decor is the stuff you already own, looked at with fresh eyes. If that's the kind of creative, budget-friendly gardening you love, hit subscribe and tap the bell. New upcycling and garden ideas every week. All right, let's see what's hiding in that junk pile. Number 12, a colander hanging planter. We're starting with one of the simplest, most satisfying transformations on the whole list. Here's why it opens the list. An old metal colander. Dented, maybe a little rusty, definitely past its kitchen duties. Already has drainage holes built right in. Here's the surprising part. That's the single hardest part of building any planter, and yours has already been done for you decades ago, in a factory. Here's how. Attach a few lengths of chain or sturdy wire to the rim of the colander, gathered together at the top into a hook, and fill it with potting soil and trailing plants. Hang it from a hook or bracket. Design tip. A little rust or wear is a feature here, not a flaw. It gives the piece genuine, weathered character that brand new planters spend money trying to fake. Cost reality. The colander, already yours. Headed for the donation pile or the trash. A bit of chain or wire. A few dollars. Total? Essentially free for a planter with more personality than anything off a shelf. Coming up at number 11. The broken piece of furniture most people would throw away without a second thought. Number 11. A drawer plant shelf. Here's the thing about old dressers and cabinets. When one drawer breaks, or the whole piece gets too worn for indoor use, the instinct is to haul the whole thing to the curb. Here's the surprising part. A single salvaged drawer on its own makes a wonderful little shelf or display box for plants. Here's how. Mount a drawer horizontally on a wall or fence, opening facing up, using simple brackets. Line it loosely with landscape fabric or a plastic liner, then fill it with potted succulents or small plants. Design tip. Leave the original drawer, pull or handle in place. That small detail is what makes it instantly recognizable as a drawer, rather than just a generic wooden box, which is exactly what makes it charming. Cost reality. The drawer, salvaged from furniture otherwise headed for the trash. A couple of brackets, a few dollars. Total? Nearly free for a one-of-a-kind plant shelf nobody else will have. Up next at number 10, the kitchen tool drawer most people clear out once a decade, and every single piece in it has a second life outside. Number 10, old cutlery and utensil plant markers. Here's a small project with a big charm factor. Every kitchen has a drawer of mismatched, slightly bent old spoons and forks that never quite get thrown away, but never quite get used either. Here's the surprising part. That exact drawer is a free supply of beautiful, durable plant markers. Here's how. Take old spoons, forks, or butter knives, and flatten the handle slightly with a hammer if needed. Using metal stamps or a paint pen, mark the plant name onto the flattened handle and push it into the soil at the base of each plant. Design tip: a mismatched set looks more charming than a uniform one here. Different shapes and finishes read as collected over time, rather than mass-produced, cost reality, old cutlery, already yours, otherwise destined for the donation bin. A paint pen if you don't have one, a couple of dollars total. Essentially free for plant markers with genuine personality. Coming up at number 9, the broken appliance part most people never think twice about before tossing in the bin. Number 9, wire whisk and beater garden art. Here's a wonderfully strange idea that works better than it has any right to. Old wire whisks, mixer beaters, and even the wire racks from broken appliances have a delicate, looping shape that, with a little imagination, looks remarkably like flower petals or leaves. Here's the surprising part. A cluster of old whisks, mounted on a stake and arranged like a flower head, with a button or bottle cap as the center, makes genuinely charming garden art. Here's how. Gather a handful of old whisks or wire beaters, arrange several around a central point to form a flower shape, and wire them together. Mount the finished piece on a garden stake. Design tip: a quick coat of bright outdoor spray paint turns dull, tarnished kitchen metal into a cheerful pop of garden color. Cost reality: old whisks and beaters, already yours, or easily found secondhand for almost nothing. A garden stake and a little paint, a few dollars. Total, nearly free for garden art nobody else on the block will have. Up next at number 8, the everyday glass jars sitting in your recycling bin right now turned into something that glows. Number 8, glass jar solar lanterns. Here's a project that turns something you'd normally toss straight into recycling into something that lights up your evenings. Old pasta sauce jars, jam jars, even mismatched drinking glasses all work beautifully here. Here's the surprising part. Paired with an inexpensive solar light, the kind sold for garden stakes, a simple glass jar becomes a glowing lantern with the solar panel doing all the technical work. Here's how. Clean out a glass jar thoroughly, removing any labels. Decorate the outside if you like, or leave it clear. Drop a small solar light, stake removed, into the top of the jar so the panel still faces up to catch the sun. Design tip: a cluster of different jar shapes and sizes, grouped together, looks far more interesting than a single matching set. Embrace the mismatch, cost reality, the jars, already heading to recycling. A few small solar lights, a modest cost. Total, a few dollars for a whole row of glowing garden lanterns. Coming up at number 7, the worn-out piece of furniture that once flipped on its head becomes one of the most charming plant stands you'll ever see. Number 7, an upside-down chair plant stand. Here's a transformation that genuinely surprises people the first time they see it. An old wooden chair, all broken seat, wobbly leg, otherwise headed for the curb, flipped completely upside down, becomes a tiered, rustic stand for displaying plants. Here's the surprising part. The chair's own structure does all the design work for you. The legs, now pointing upward, become natural tiers for setting pots, and the backrest at the base adds visual interest underneath. Here's how. Flip the chair upside down so the legs point toward the sky. Arrange potted plants on whatever flat or stable surfaces the upturned structure offers. Design tip: a coat of weatherproof paint in a single bold color unifies an otherwise mismatched worn piece into something that looks deliberately chosen. Cost reality. The chair, already yours, or free from a curb or thrift store. Paint, if you choose to use it, a few dollars. Total, nearly free for one of the most distinctive plant stands you'll ever own. Up next at number 6, the everyday tool that turns into a striking trellis the moment it's no longer fit for the garage. Hey, quick pause, just a second. If you're already eyeing something in your garage differently, do me a favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this reach more people who'd love to create instead of shop. And tell me in the comments, what's the oldest, weirdest piece of junk you've still got sitting around, waiting for a second life? I read everyone, and I love hearing what people have stashed away. 6 more to go. And this is where it gets really clever. Keep watching. Number 6, an old bed frame trellis. Here's a project for anyone who's ever upgraded. A mattress, and been left wondering what on earth to do with the old metal headboard or footboard. Here's the surprising part. That decorative metal frame with its curves and openings is essentially a trellis that's already been designed. You're just changing its job. Here's how. Stand a metal headboard or footboard upright in the garden, anchored with a couple of stakes for stability. Plant a climbing vine at the base and let it grow up through the metalwork. Design tip. The more ornate the original headboard, the more striking the final result. Intricate scroll work becomes even more beautiful once it's partially covered in climbing greenery. Cost reality. The bed frame, already yours. Otherwise headed for bulk trash pickup or a recycling center. A couple of stakes, a few dollars. Total? Essentially free, for a trellis with more character than anything you'd find pre-made. Coming up at number 5, the tower of mismatched containers that turns your recycling bin into a vertical garden. Number 5, a stacked tin can vertical planter. Here's a project that solves 2 problems at once: what to do with a stack of old tin cans and how to add a vertical, layered planting feature to a small space. Here's the surprising part. Cans of slightly different sizes, stacked and offset, create natural tiers, except here every material is something you'd otherwise be recycling. Here's how. Clean out several tin cans of varying sizes and drill drainage holes in the bottom of each. Mount them in a staggered arrangement on a board or fence, securing each with wire through pre-punched holes near the rim. Fill each with soil and a small plant. Design tip: a coat of chalkboard paint on each can lets you label what's growing and adds a unified, intentional look across an otherwise mismatched collection. Cost reality. The cans, already heading to recycling. A board, wire, and a little paint. A few dollars. Total? A small spend for a vertical herb or flower garden built almost entirely from recycling. Up next at number 4, the one I teased at the start. The garden piece built entirely from a drawer of mismatched broken utensils. Number 4, here it is, the one I promised. A wind chime made entirely from broken kitchenware. Old measuring spoons with bent handles, a cracked ceramic mug, mismatched keys, a chipped saucer. All the things that had been quietly cluttering a kitchen drawer for years, with nobody quite willing to throw them out. Strung together, they became one of the most complimented pieces I've ever hung in the garden. Here's the surprising part. It's precisely the mismatch. Different materials, different shapes, different sounds, that makes a handmade wind chime so much more interesting than a uniform, store-bought one. Here's how. Gather an assortment of small, broken, or unused kitchen items with a hole you can thread through or drill a small hole into. Old spoons, a cracked dish, washers, mismatched keys. Tie each piece to a length of string at varying lengths and attach the strings to a central ring or sturdy stick. Hang it somewhere it'll catch the breeze. Design tip. Vary the lengths generously. A chime where every piece hangs at a different height creates much more visual movement and a richer range of sounds than one where everything lines up evenly. Cost reality. Every piece, already yours, already broken or unused. A bit of string and a ring or stick, pennies. Total? Completely free for a piece of garden art that genuinely sounds as unique as it looks. Up next at number 3, the old container that turns into a centerpiece fit for an actual flower show. Number 3, a teapot, or watering can cascade planter. Here's a classic with real staying power. An old teapot or watering can, tipped slightly on its side, with flowers tumbling out of the spout as though they're pouring out like water. It's one of those images that looks like a professional garden display, and it's entirely built from something that's likely chipped, dented, or otherwise retired from its original job. Here's the surprising part. The illusion does almost all the work for you. Once it's set up correctly, it genuinely looks like a frozen moment of water spilling into the garden. Here's how. Fill the body of the teapot or watering can with soil and secure it propped on its side at an angle, anchored with a stake through the handle for stability. Plant trailing flowers in the body, positioning a few stems so they spill out through the spout. Design tip: choose trailing flowers in a single bright color for the strongest pouring illusion. A mix of too many colors can muddy the effect. Cost reality: the teapot or watering can, already yours, or found for almost nothing secondhand. A few plants, a modest cost. Total: a small spend for a centerpiece display people will assume you bought from a high-end garden show. And now, number 2, the showstopper. The piece that had a visiting friend convinced I must have found it at a boutique. Number 2. A chandelier made from salvaged light fixtures and old glassware. This is the project that, when a friend saw it hanging over my patio table, made her stop mid-sentence and ask where I'd found such a unique designer piece. I told her it was an old light fixture from a renovation, dressed up with a small collection of mismatched glasses and jars I'd been keeping in a box for exactly this purpose. Here's the surprising part. An old light fixture or pendant frame, even one that no longer works electrically, is, structurally, already a beautiful framework, just waiting for something new to hang from it. Here's how. Take an old light fixture frame, remove the electrical components entirely, and hang the bare frame from a hook or sturdy branch. Onto the frame hang an assortment of small glass jars, or mismatched glassware using wire or string, each one able to hold a flameless candle or fairy lights. Design tip: lean into the mismatch. A chandelier, built from a true mix of glassware shapes and sizes, looks far more like intentional, collected design than a uniform set ever could. Cost reality: the light fixture frame, salvaged, often free from a renovation or thrift store. The glassware, collected over time, or thrifted for very little. Total? Nearly free, for the single most complimented piece you'll likely ever hang in your garden. But we've saved the best for last. Number 1 isn't a single project. It's what happens when this whole way of thinking comes together in one space. And finally, number 1, the complete upcycled garden corner. Here's why it earns the top spot. Every individual project on this list is charming on its own, but gathered together in one corner of a garden, they stop reading as a collection of random objects and start reading as a single, cohesive, collected style. The kind interior and garden designers spend a great deal of money trying to recreate on purpose. Here's how it comes together. Hang the chandelier as the centerpiece over a small seating area. Beneath it, set the upside-down chair plant stand. Mount the bed frame trellis behind it, with a vine climbing through. Line the path with glass jar solar lanterns. Tuck the teapot cascade planter and the colander planter among the greenery. Hang the wind chime where it'll catch the breeze, and finish with cutlery markers labeling what's growing nearby. Here's the surprising part. Every single piece in that corner has a story. Where it came from, what it used to be, and that's exactly what makes the whole space feel rich and personal in a way that nothing purchased new ever quite manages. Cost reality. You've gathered the pieces across this whole list, almost all of it salvaged or already owned. Total? A genuinely stunning garden corner for a small fraction of what an equivalent purchased collection would cost. Often, for next to nothing at all. And here's what really matters. This isn't really about saving money, even though it certainly does that. It's about looking at the things heading for the trash with a different question. Not, is this useless now? But what could this become? Once you start asking that question, you'll never look at a curb pile, a junk drawer, or a thrift store shelf the same way again. Now, the free trick I promised. The one that makes any piece of junk look like it was meant for the garden all along, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Here it is. Let it weather, and let plants do the rest. Here's why it works, and it's the one thing that separates obviously repurposed trash from charming garden find. A brand new shiny object placed outdoors looks out of place, almost jarring, against the natural textures of a garden. But give something a season or two outside. Let metal develop a little rust, let wood silver and weather, let paint chip slightly at the edges, and it starts to belong there in a way that nothing new quite achieves. Here's the second half of this trick, and it's just as important. Let your plants do some of the disguising. A trailing vine creeping over the edge of a salvaged drawer, or a cluster of leaves partially hiding the join, where you wired two pieces together, instantly makes the construction feel secondary to the living, growing thing it's now supporting. So here's your do-it-now homework. With your next upcycling project, resist the urge to make it look brand new. Skip a fresh coat of paint if the existing wear already looks interesting, and plant something that will grow to soften and partially cover the piece within a season. That one free habit, let it weather, let it green over, is the invisible difference between something that looks like leftover junk and something that looks like it's always belonged exactly where you put it. So, there you have it. 12 ways to turn everyday junk into genuinely beautiful garden decor, proving that junk doesn't have to look like junk. You don't need any special artistic skill, and the best garden pieces aren't always the ones you buy. Think back over what we covered. From a simple colander planter and a drawer full of old cutlery, to a wind chime built entirely from broken kitchenware, to that chandelier a friend assumed that was a boutique find, all the way to a complete garden corner built almost entirely from things that were headed for the trash. Every one of these started as something nobody wanted anymore. Every one of them is genuinely free or nearly free, and every one of them turns a quiet act of rescuing something from the trash into a piece of your garden that's genuinely, completely one of a kind. Now I want to hear from you. Which one are you starting with? The colander planter, the wind chime, or are you already eyeing an old piece of furniture in the garage for that chair plant stand? Tell me your plan in the comments. I read everyone, and I'd love to see what you create. If this helped and you're not subscribed yet, now's the moment. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join a whole community of people creating beautiful gardens from things other people threw away. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. It truly means a lot. Now go take a fresh look at that junk drawer and see what it could become. I'll see you in the next one.